Hello and welcome back to Assetto Corsa. Thank you very much for joining me in this video, and today we're going to be taking a look at this, another LMP prototype by the VRC Modding Team, sponsored by Next Level Racing, and this is the R8 or the Audi R8 LMP prototype, as it actually is, if there was actual licensing for it. As you can see on the screen right now, these are the colours that you get in general, the normal colours, with the sort of mod itself, but I'm going to be using this, which is the Audi R8 colours, which I picked up from Race Department. So Race Department has awesome stuff, and these are the 2002 or 2004 colours. I think it's the 2002 colours for the actual Audi R8. So make sure you stay tuned for the next about 20 minutes or so to hear my thoughts on this vehicle, to see if it's worth a purchase, and to see some pretty slow lap times. Now, unfortunately, it is a little bit difficult to actually get hold of some information for this vehicle, so I am going to start with a little bit of information about the mod itself. It is by, as I said, VRC Modding. I just reviewed their Bentley Speed 8, or I think they call it the Bradley 8, so I reviewed that in the last video, episode 166. If you haven't seen that, do go check that out. It will be the video before this one in the playlist, so make sure you do go check that out, because that was the only car that beat this vehicle, and that was in 2003. So that means this vehicle won when it came out in 2000, it's won in 2001, it's won in 2002, it's won in 2004, it's won in 2005, after which it was replaced by the Audi R10 TDI, first diesel LMP car that I think I know of, full stop. I don't think there were diesel LMP cars before that. So this car was phenomenally good. But like I said, VRC Modding Team made it. It was sponsored by Next Level Racing, who wanted this vehicle made, I assume, and managed to offset some of the costs. So this is a payware mod. The amount of work that goes into mods like this is ridiculous. I was speaking to one of the members of the team, and they were just telling me how difficult it is to actually make a mod like this and actually get it right and test it, get the sounds for it, sort it out, get it in Assetto Corsa, optimize it, so on and so forth. So I do recommend you going to pick this up after this review if you feel so inclined. I believe it is $4.50, so it's not that expensive, the same price as the Bentley Speed 8, and it just gives you two LMP cars to sort of pit against each other. With that all being said and done, it's time to dive into the specs of this car. The version or the variant that we're using right now is the 2003 variant. However, because this car first came out in 2000 and was worked on and changed as regulations changed and as the car changed all the way until 2005, it is a little bit strange. It is a little bit strange that we have a few sort of here and there where we've got some problems with disparities between the speeds, between the power, the torque, and things like that. So I'm going to give you the best that I know of, to my knowledge, of this. So it comes with a 570 brake horsepower engine. This is a V8 engine, 90 degrees, mid-engine, longitudinally mounted. Now, unlike the Bentley, which was also using an Audi engine in 2003, this is a 3.6 litre engine, whilst the Bentley was a 4 litre engine with a 90 degree V8. So this has slightly smaller bores and strokes. 4 valves per cylinder, as usual, dual overhead cam, as you would get. Now, it is twin turbo, just like the Bentley, but this is where everything starts changing. So like I said, it brings up about 570 brake horsepower. In certain configurations, it was giving about 600, 610 brake horsepower, something like that. And the torque that is supplied is 652 Newton meters of torque in this mod, which is about 490, I think, hold on. Yeah, it's about 490 foot-pounds of torque. Other torque figures that are given are 700 Newton meters of torque, for example, for some of them, which is about 515 foot-pounds of torque. So it does change as the years go on, but this variant is 570 bhp and 652 Newton meters, which is 490 foot-pounds of torque. It only weighs 910 kilograms in this, guys. Can go down to 900 at the lowest, but it is 910 kilograms in this, guys, which means that you've got about a 0 to 60, depending on the gearing, less than 3 seconds, as you would expect, and top speed can go well in excess of 200 miles per hour should it be geared that way. In the current gearing configuration, with the current gear ratios, we were looking at about 100 and probably, if I had a long enough straight, 190, probably about 195, 196 miles per hour. I think I managed to get to 190 in this video. So that's some information about the engine and the weight. Of course, it does have carbon fiber composite chassis, and it does have carbon fiber composite bodywork, so we do have these composites actually going through there. This one actually had an aluminium honeycomb monocoque, and this is where we sort of were talking about in the last episode about how the materials helped keep the weight down, and this is exactly what they were doing. So the honeycomb essentially removes excess weight, so you've got an aluminium honeycomb, and all the gaps in the honeycomb itself is where you don't actually need that weight, so that's where the weight is reduced. And of course, using carbon fiber also reduces that weight. Interestingly enough, you cannot see the carbon fiber so well on this car as you could on the Bentley. The carbon fiber was very visible in a number of places. On this vehicle, it is not. The suspension was independent double wishbone pushrod system, front and rear, so just standard type of suspension system. Didn't have those unequal arms, which does make it slightly different to drive, perhaps slightly more as you would expect. I think the unequal arms were giving me an interesting sense of balance, or an interesting sense of roll, should I say, when I was actually driving the Bentley. It did feel slightly different to this car. Actually, it felt massively different to this car, but I'll get onto that very, very soon. It had a Ricardo 6-speed sequential gearbox, so again, differing from the Bentley now. It's not British, not the X-Track gearbox. It's a Ricardo 6-speed sequential gearbox, and it did take the power all the way to the rear wheel, so this is just a rear wheel drive. Aside from that, I think the only other thing you need to know, of course, endurance car, brakes are really, really important. So the brakes they were hydraulic servo assisted, they were ventilated and cross drilled, so slightly different. Once again, they were carbon ceramic brakes, but they were ventilated and cross drilled to improve, essentially, I'd say, to improve the amount of heat dissipation, allowing you to brake a lot harder on this car without feeling any amount of brake fade or anything like that. So that's pretty cool. The wheels themselves were, the track of the wheels was about 27-30 mil, so it's pretty long. But when you take into, or pretty wide, when you take into account of the actual car, of the wheelbase, sorry, not the track, the wheelbase 27-30. When you take into account the actual length of the car, it's 4.6 meters. It makes the wheels seem quite set in, but that's just because of how the nose sort of protrudes out the front, and also you've got the bit at the back. It does make the car seem a lot bigger than it is. Again, this is a very long car, and it did have Michelin tires. Aside from that, I suppose any other information you want to know about this, probably the wins that this car had, and it had a lot of wins. You're talking about 2000 Sebring 12 hours, you had the 2000 Le Mans, 2001 Le Mans, 2002 Le Mans, 2004 Le Mans, 2005 Le Mans, 2005 Sebring, 2004 Sebring, 2003 Sebring, 2002 Sebring, 2001 Sebring, and it was driven by drivers such as Rinaldo Capello. Again, he was the Bentley driver in 2003. He also drove this car and won in a number of the events. Johnny Herbert, again, he drove the Bentley at some point. He also won in this vehicle. Alan McNish, he won in this vehicle. I don't think he drives anymore. I think he retired from driving for Audi, or just full stop retired from driving a couple of years ago. You also had, of course, Tom Christensen, who won in this car multiple times, and this is one of the cars that made him the master of Le Mans as it is. So that's all the information about the vehicle, as much as I could actually find. And now I suppose it's time to talk about what this vehicle looks like, sounds like, and feels like in Assetto Corsa. Well, first of all, the looks of this vehicle, I have to say that in some way, I would say that this vehicle looks a little better than the Bentley, and mostly as I go for a spin. Mostly I think it's to do with the fact that it's open top. Now this vehicle was to replace the R8C and the R8R. I think R8R must have stood for R8 Roadster and R8C was R8 Closed, which used to race in the 90s, and this vehicle was designed to replace both of them. Those cars were ugly, really ugly cars. They're probably the worst looking Audis I have ever seen, but these cars, quite classy, quite aggressive as well. If you look at the lighting on this vehicle and the shapes of the lights and the angles, this is a very aggressive looking car. I really like this vehicle. I think it looks better than the R8 because of the fact that it's an open cockpit. I think, sorry, not the R8, the Speed 8. If the Bentley was an open cockpit, I think it would look just as good, but there is something about the lights that make it look a little bit more aggressive, whereas with the Bentley they look a little bit more, as I said last time, awkward. Aside from that, everything seems quite standard in this vehicle, nothing too different, apart from the fact that we're driving on the left hand side as opposed to the right. We've got the standard Bosch system in the middle, exactly the same as the Bentley. Everything's fairly recognisable here from the last episode, and it's nice and clean. I like this again, very nice and clean, and a clean cockpit is brilliant. Less buttons to press, less information everywhere, as I go for yet another spin. I think these were the only 2 spins I had in this video, the only 2 spins I've had in this car, so after this we should have no more spins. But yeah, everything's very nice and clean. I do quite like it. The steering wheel is quite interesting. It doesn't have the top on it, which is nice. It allows me to see the rev lights or the shift lights a lot clearer, which is again quite cool. I like the way this was modelled overall, with all the vents, with all the... everything's just been modelled just right with this car, so VRC have done a fantastic job just modelling everything correctly and keeping it all optimised. It's not having an impact or a huge impact on my frames or anything of the sort. It's really nice. I'm going to point out that in the middle you'll see that the Delta is not working. That's only because I've had to take this from a replay because the initial recording failed. Delta does actually work when you're driving this live. Moving on to textures, the textures that come supplied with the actual vehicle are fine. They're brilliant, and though they are fictional, they are still really good. But this one is really fantastic too. This is the standard Audi textures. As I said, I think it's from the 2002 season, and they really look brilliant. They really do. So I'm really happy about that. Top job by the modders, top job by the texture artist for VRC and the modder who's put this additional texture on. Fantastic stuff all the way around. Really, when it comes to modelling and texturing, you cannot fault the modders anymore. It's just really that good. Moving on from that, we can go on to sound. Twin turbo V8, you can hear it, you can hear the transmission whine, you can hear everything. It's really nice, and I love the noises that you can just hear, these sort of the blow off valve and things like that. It's been done spot on, both interior and exterior. It's been done spot on. I'm really happy with that. No sound faults at all. VRC have done it again with perfect sound. I think is it Mr. Mike that does the sounds for these. So again, top class. We've heard his sounds many times before on different mods over the years, and he's done it again. He really has done it again. So great stuff right there. Lastly, of course, we're talking about physics and force feedback, and this is where the actual feel of the car comes in. Of course, you've got a car that sounds great, looks great, and is textured brilliantly, but if it feels like a potato, then what's the point of having the car? Thankfully, this does not feel like a potato, but it does feel very different from the Bentley. Now, whether this is to do with the suspension or just the way the power was being delivered to the wheels or what, I am not sure, but it feels different to the Bentley. First of all, it seemed to rev slightly higher than the Bentley, only by about 300 RPM is all, but it did rev slightly higher than the Bentley. Power going to the rear wheels felt absolutely fine. It was pretty planted when you were doing that. However, However, I found on this vehicle, and this must be again because it's an open cockpit, I was finding myself going into corners a little bit too quickly. With the Bentley, it was closed cockpit, I was finding I was going into corners too slowly. With this, I felt like it was a bit more like a Formula 1 car or a Formula car of some sort, and I was going in a little bit more quickly, which I like, but I did have to tone it down a little bit. So there was that, but driving wise it felt really good. However, I will say it feels a lot more agile than the Bentley, which is interesting because just comparing for a second to Assetto Corsa Competizione, the Bentley felt more like a statesman car in Assetto Corsa Competizione, the GT3 Bentley, that is the Continental. Same thing here. The Bentley, though quick, felt a bit more in control, a bit more understeery, a bit more sort of tame. This felt more aggressive, this felt more agile, and as such, it was actually harder to extract a lap time out of this vehicle than it was out of the Bentley. Now, the fastest lap time I will post, I think, will be a 3-minute 47. In the Bentley, I posted a 3:46, and I said in that video that I could go, sorry, I did a 3:44 in the Bentley, and I said I could go about 6 seconds faster with a couple of more laps, which means I would break into sort of 3-minute 38s or thereabouts. In this vehicle, I don't think I could get into the 30s. I really don't think I could get to the 30s. I think I could get this down to a 42, but that's about it. I really don't think I could break into the 30s, not without a lot of practice. Now, with the Bentley, I've done 90 miles. With this vehicle, at the time of having this recording being done, I have done 75 miles. And I feel a lot more comfortable in the Bentley than I do in this. That being said, this car is a lot more fun. It sticks to the road more. I think you can throw it in a lot more. But for some reason, it just... extracting the lap time out of this car just seemed harder for some reason. I just cannot explain it. I can't put my finger on what it was about this car that just wasn't allowing me to extract the lap time. It felt better in every which way, except the fact that it didn't seem as fast. Now, maybe that's my driving. Maybe I was trying to drive it like a Bentley and that wasn't working, but I was genuinely struggling to get a lap time out of this vehicle. I'm in the 3:48s at this point. With the Bentley, I was at the 3:46s, so I was 2 seconds faster in the Bentley already. This car, I don't feel like I've warmed up enough for it. While the Bentley, I was like, yeah, I'm doing okay. So there is that to consider. So is it a more fun car? It's definitely a more fun car, but it does feel slower. It did feel slower. Now, I just don't know what it is that made it feel slower. And yeah, it's something I'm going to have to explore. I want to try and put these two cars to the test one after another and just see what I can actually do. In fact, after this recording, I might actually go and do a few laps in the Bentley and see how quick I can get that Bentley going. But overall, this car is absolutely fantastic. I really did enjoy it. It was a great drive. It was a great drive, well worth getting. It's not a car that you can drive exactly the same as the Bentley, but it provides a different experience, a different set of thrills. And honestly, when you do get this right, I think it's more satisfying than the Bentley. The Bentley is like, you've got it right, okay, now I can go faster. This car feels like you've got to work for that speed. You've got to work to get it at that speed to go as fast as you want it to go. So that is what I really do like about this vehicle. With that being said, I think there's nothing else to be said really. If you want to purchase this vehicle, link is in the description box to VRC Modding. Thank you very much to them for letting me review this vehicle, and thank you guys for watching. If you did like the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more videos on Assetto Corsa, leave a comment in the comments box below letting me know what you think. Don't forget to support me on Patreon, www.patreon.com/ecgadgets. Your support would be massively appreciated. It would really help me out. Also, you can find me on social media at ecgadgetslp for both Twitter and Instagram. that's all from me. I'm going to let you guys enjoy the rest of this lap, and I'll see you guys next time in Assetto Corsa with, well, I don't know, I'll just have to see.